Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule presented by FanDuel. Today is Monday, March 16th, or maybe late Sunday night, March 15th. Shout out to anybody who may have wanted to end your weekend by watching a solo reaction video from our great channel. We appreciate you, because we are going to put this up Sunday night because, folks, we have a bracket and we have a spot for the Missouri Tigers in that bracket. I promise Kenny and Peyton have not abandoned the show, just the way schedules were working. We wanted to upload a little bracket reaction on Sunday. We will have another show before Missouri's first NCAA tournament game, because, of course, we now know when that is going to be, but I just thought I'd hop on and at least give some thoughts and some takeaways as to Missouri's draw in the NCAA tournament. Just give some reaction while it's still fresh. I'm recording this around 8 o'clock on Sunday night. The bracket reveal, of course, was just a few hours ago for me. And Missouri ends up with a number 10 seed and a pretty insanely favorable draw, given what we thought this team might end up getting by the end of the season. Of course, kind of limping into the big dance. Very much thought that Dayton was going to be in play for this team. Instead, they not only end up with a 10 seed, they end up with a 10 seed just a mere 2-hour drive from their home campus in St. Louis. Officially, they are going to play at 9:10 p.m. Friday night in St. Louis. The significance of that's the last game of the first round, which is kind of fun. So they will end the round of 64 with a game against the Miami, Florida Hurricanes. We thought maybe, a lot of talk in the chats that Peyton and Kenny and I are in, thought maybe Missouri would be getting Miami, Ohio, which didn't end up in the first four. And we'll have to play in Dayton. And I think most Mizzou fans were probably dreading that as a potential, just, to lose to that kind of darling team and lose to another mid-major. But instead, Missouri, which, coming into Sunday morning was very much on that last four buys, last four in cut line. Joe Lunardi actually just randomly, he seemed to do this a lot toward the end, where he would just kind of sleep on stuff and then wake up and flip-flop teams, even though neither of them had ever played. He ended up switching Missouri and Santa Clara, moving Missouri into the last four buys and Santa Clara into the last four. And both of those teams ended up getting the last four buys. Santa Clara actually will also be in St. Louis as a 10 seed. They're going to play against Kentucky, which a little tough for the ticket purchasers maybe going to that game, because Kentucky, of course, travels in droves. But he ended up getting Missouri's seed right, ended up being right in their forecasting. They avoid Dayton. That is the kind of major headline here. And, well, it's almost secondary to the fact that they are going to play in St. Louis. They're going to play Miami, Florida, which now has to travel several hundred miles away to play a game as a favorable seed, against a Missouri team that is a 10 seed, but only has to travel 2 hours from campus. That is a very real factor, I think, now when you start to look at this matchup and to look at Missouri's path here in the NCAA tournament. They are in the West region, I believe. Yes, the West region, with Arizona as the number 1 seed in the West. So if they win in Miami, I believe they'd be headed off the check. I can't remember where the West region actually goes off the top of my head. I think it might be either LA, maybe Vegas. I'll check by the end. But it's extremely significant and extremely fortuitous for Missouri, I think, and about as good of a draw as I think you could have asked for, to be off of Dayton, to be a 10 seed. You could have gotten one of the, just regular. I know South Florida was one of those like regular at-large 11 seed teams, or I guess they got an auto bid because they did win the American, but you could have still been on that 11 seed line. Instead, you sneak up to the 10 seed, get to play a real Power 5 team, which I'm just kind of looking forward to. I mean, in the Dennis Gates era, you've seen Missouri play Utah State, Princeton, and Drake. None of those teams are in a Power 5 conference. I think Miami's a pretty enjoyable opponent. They obviously had a lot of success under Jim Larrañaga. We actually, I think I went and watched them actually in Kansas City the year they went to the Final Four, of course, in that wild season back in 2023 when they were over in KC. So they've had some pretty recent tournament success. They're under Jay Lucas now, a former Duke assistant, and have had a strong season at 25-6 in the ACC. But huge news for Missouri to get the 10 seed first and foremost. And we'll get into it. Obviously, we're going to have a whole preview show. I'll drop some of my Miami related things, here that I've looked at. I've obviously, like Peyton and Kenny, kind of a bracket nerd, and like to get into knowing all the teams and follow the sport very closely. Here's the really fun part. And by the time you're probably watching or listening to this, you've probably been made aware of this fact. The first thing I want to go to with this matchup is the history between these two teams, because they have played approximately one time in their collective histories. That was back in 2002. Some people watching or listening to this might remember that game. I do not. I was a young, tiny child. But Missouri played Miami. They won 93-80. That was in the NCAA tournament, also in the West region, coincidentally, in Albuquerque. And this was a 12-5 game. Missouri got in as an at-large 12 seed, if you can believe that in the big 2026 that ever be possible. Miami a 5 at 24-8. Missouri wins that game. Shout out six guys in double figures. Clarence Gilbert 20 points, 16 for Ricky Paulding. Kareem Rush played in that game, 15 for him. Trevin Bryant 10, Wesley Stokes 10, Arthur Johnson 12 off the bench. I'm just trying to name some, just drop some names for some nostalgia. And check out this guy, Josh Kroenke, of course. Having some success in the what am I trying to say, front office kind of realm. But not only did they win this game, this sparked an Elite Eight run for Missouri. They then went on and beat the 4 seed in the region. I wrote it down. They beat Ohio State, the number 4 seed, then beat UCLA in the Sweet 16 to go all the way to the Elite Eight. They eventually lost to Oklahoma. So some pretty fun history there. It's always nice, I think, when the NCAA tournament, kind of gives like that, and you can get some of the history of that game. I definitely, if I can dig up, highlights, I'm sure they're available somewhere, even from 2002. I'm definitely going to watch the highlights of that game before. I didn't even check. Let's see who was on this Miami team. John Salmons played in the NBA for a while. There you go. James Jones, I think, too. I don't know if that's the same James Jones who played for the Heat for a while. But anyway, that's kind of the fun history. And like I said, that's the only matchup between these two teams. And it was also in the NCAA tournament. It was, similar-ish seeds and ended in an Elite Eight run for Missouri. If you're looking to, of course, at their region, just some more bracket reactionary stuff. If they do knock off Miami, they'll play the winner between Purdue and Queens. Queens, a team a lot of people who are following the conference championship games closely kind of started to fall in love with a little bit. They have a plastic dog that they put on their sidelines that it's like, are you going to be a dog today, is the whole like mantra. So they're a fun team. Purdue is, of course, red hot. They won the Big Ten championship just on Sunday, knocked off Michigan, the number 1 seed right below them there, as you can see in the Midwest region. So that was, they've gone on a tear after really struggling at the end of the regular season. So they're definitely a team that has gotten really hot. They, of course, were the preseason favorite to win the Big Ten. Michigan is a team I really like. As a matter of fact, I filled out one bracket so far. I picked the Wolverines to win the national title in that bracket still. So that is not going to be easy for whoever emerges from this Mizzou or Miami game. But you've got Purdue, of course, and then, you scroll up a little bit. If Missouri knocks off Purdue, they'll go to the Sweet 16. You got this little quad here. BYU, the 6 seed, Gonzaga, the 3 seed. Gonzaga, I don't think has lost a first round tournament game since like 2002. As much as I like Antoine Petway over at Kennesaw State, he's doing a good job with them. You've got the Zags. BYU, of course, an interesting team. Can you imagine Missouri versus AJ DiBonsa in a little 10-6 matchup in the Sweet 16? That would be very, very enticing. But they're going to play against 2 teams that we thought, or that are in a spot we thought Missouri would be in, NC State or Texas, whoever comes out of the first 4 in that one. So if you get a BYU Gonzaga game there, that'll be interesting. BYU, of course, was one of the favorites in the Big 12. They lost Richie Saunders, one of their better guard players for the season. They've struggled a little bit without him, but they're going to have the best player on the floor no matter who they play. So that is a very interesting little region there as well. And then you scroll up even further if you start talking Elite 8. Arizona, like I mentioned, is the number 1 seed in this region. Villanova, there's Utah State, who of course Mizzou played back in 2023. This is a pretty intense little quad here. Wisconsin and High Point, 2 very high-powered teams. There'd be a lot of scoring in that game. I've made no secret on this show. I grew up a Wisconsin fan. I still follow the Badgers very closely, so I will have my eye on that one. And Arkansas, of course, the SEC champions. They're going to play Hawaii. Shout out Hawaii, the Rainbow Warriors, for getting back to the big dance. But Arkansas-Wisconsin second-round game, I think 2 of those teams could be pretty capable of playing Arizona pretty close. So that's who you got to think about there at the top of the bracket when you look at the potential of Missouri going on a little bit of a run. It's an interesting region. I draw your attention to the East region, and you probably, first of all, I don't think any Mizzou fan is torn up at all about this result on Selection Sunday. But if you're going to find anything to complain about, I don't think the region should be it. At least they're not in this East region, which is just loaded. Duke, Kansas, St. John's, which may be one of the more snubbed teams in a bracket result that I thought actually wasn't too bad in terms of like who got in and who didn't and what seeds people were. St. John's won the Big East. They've been amazing pretty much since the middle of January. They still end up with a 5 seed, but you've got, Duke, St. John's with Rick Pitino, Kansas with Bill Self, Louisville's in there, kind of a historic power, Michigan State with Izzo, UCLA, a historic blue blood, and then UConn all in one bracket. I mean, that's going to be pretty wild to watch there in the East. So I'm pretty grateful Missouri didn't end up in that pretty wild region. But larger bracket things aside, a little bit more on Miami, just a brief overview. I don't want to necessarily drone too on and on about them, because I'm sure I'll end up repeating myself when Kenny Payton and I talk about this game and the build up to it later on in another show this week. But Miami, they're 25-8. They went 13-5 in the ACC. They lost to Virginia in the semifinals of the conference tournament. Virginia themselves got a 3 seed, and I really like their draw. That's more bracket talk. But Ken Pom has Miami at number 31, Torvik number 35. They were 32 in the net, 25 in wins above bubble, which is something I brought up on here, and something that if you've been watching all the bracket shows, people have been talking about that. That's, how you performed against your schedule versus a relative bubble team. Missouri was right down around 40 for that. So some things to keep in mind there, metrics wise. And it's going to be an interesting team as I kind of keep dissecting them. They do have 4 common opponents with Missouri, and 3 of them are high major teams. Miami, of course, played Notre Dame because Notre Dame is also in the ACC. They beat Notre Dame 81-69. Missouri, that is one of their worst losses of the season. It was 76-71 in favor of the Fighting Irish, which people were none too pleased about. And it just occurred to me, I could have probably pulled up Miami's little front page on ESPN for at least a little visual. But yeah, Notre Dame, Bethune is another one. Missouri and Miami both blew out Bethune-Cookman. Florida, as you can see, Miami lost in the non-con 82-68. Missouri, of course, beat the Gators 76-74. That is, probably a major reason why Missouri is where they are right now. Miami also played Ole Miss. They won that game 75-66. Missouri, of course, one of the reasons that they're also where they are right now was they lost to Ole Miss. Shout out the Rebels, by the way. My goodness, a run in the SEC championship, knocked off Alabama. Thought they were going to get to that title game and played Arkansas really, really close. that was a pretty wild thing to follow, and not good for Missouri. Imagine an Oklahoma Ole Miss final and how that would have changed Missouri's bracket things. We don't have to worry about that anymore. So yeah, Notre Dame, Florida, Ole Miss, and Bethune are the 4 kind of common opponents between Missouri and Miami. Other Power 5 teams they played outside of their conference. They lost to BYU by 10 back in November. They also played Georgetown, a Big East team. They had an okay season. They weren't that great, but won that game 78-65. KenPom right now did have this game projected as a 77-71 win for the Canes. If you're wondering kind of recent form, Miami in their last few games since February started, actually, they're 8-3. That does include the loss to Virginia in the ACC semis. They also lost to Virginia earlier in the year by 3 and lost actually their last regular season game of the year to Louisville, which ended up getting a 6 seed. So 2 teams that were pretty evenly matched there. Of course, the ACC, not the best conference. It was a lot better. It was a lot better this year than it was last year. Virginia, I think, is a really good team. Of course, Duke and Miami ended up finishing 3rd ahead of North Carolina, which of course lost, Caleb Wilson. Clemson is a tournament team. Louisville's a tournament team. Of course, NC State is as well. Florida State almost upset Duke in the conference semifinals. So, a decent conference. I still think the SEC probably ranks above it. But of course, recent form suggests that the Canes are going into things a little bit stronger than Missouri, but that's of course not a total shock. It's a very evenly balanced Miami team. Frankly, when I just look at kind of the nerdy KenPom stats, they're number 33 in adjusted offensive efficiency and they're number 38 in adjusted defensive efficiency. They can kind of do a little bit of both. They have a team with a ton of transfers. The name that everyone might know off the top is Trey Donaldson. He's actually their 2nd leading scorer, but he of course spent 2 years at Auburn. So he's played against Mizzou twice. Didn't do anything really notable in either of those games, but also spent a season at Michigan. Their leading scorer is a guy named Malik Renault, who played 3 years at Indiana before transferring to Miami. So I have to check. He might have some crossover with Tamar Bates. I would think he would. But shout out to Tamar Bates. He leads them in scoring 18 points a game. Trey Donaldson's at around 16. Ernest Uday Jr. Is their best rebounder and best guy on the interior defensively. Almost a little over 9 rebounds a game for him. Their other double figure scorers, True Washington, one of the better names in college basketball, is at around 12 points. Shelton Henderson, he's actually a true freshman. He's at around 14 points per game. He was a 4-star in the class of 2025. And then their only other guy who gets over 20 minutes a game is Dante Allen. Averages around 6 points. He is also a freshman. So that's kind of their team. Again, it's an interesting group. I am really kind of looking forward to diving into them more. I will highlight a couple of other, team things just on the surface. They're pretty good on the offensive glass in both facets. So they keep teams off the offensive glass and they get O boards at a decently high rate. That's one of their better KenPom stats. They can turn teams over a decent amount. Probably their most glaring thing, and Missouri shares one trait with Miami that's not so great. They are 273rd in opponent 3-point percentage. They can give up a lot of threes. Missouri, I've actually learned, is the worst team in the tournament at opponent 3-point percentage, 330th. That shouldn't come as a surprise if you've been watching Mizzou games, but neither team very good at stopping threes. The other interesting thing for Miami, which is also cropped up for Missouri, not a very good free throw shooting team. Their best player overall is Renault, who's right around 80%. This guy's taken 9 threes, so ignore that. 68.5 on the season for them. I believe that also ranks in the 300s. It's 311 in all of D1. So that's a little bit of kind of on the surface stuff. I have more kind of stats about Miami and Missouri relative to some other tournament teams. And I kind of want to share that, as Kenny and Peyton, when Kenny and Peyton kind of filter back, we can riff a little bit more. I don't want to, I put all my eggs in one basket isn't the right phrase, but I can't push all my chips to the middle of the table right now, guys. I got to do some more prep. I want to find out some more stuff. I want to share some more stuff, but yeah, that's a little bit of an overview of Miami, just kind of reaction to Missouri's tournament. pretty freaking awesome draw. I don't think you can be upset with it in any way. I mean, Missouri is going to have, you see this all the time. It's funny. Last year, I covered the University of Alabama. They were a 2 seed and played in Cleveland, Ohio to start the tournament. And their 15 seed was Robert Morris, a school that was about 45 minutes away from Rocket Arena, where the Cavs play, where the tournament was. Robert Morris pushed Alabama pretty darn close in that first round game. So having the home court, so to speak, advantage is a big factor. There's going to be a ton of Missouri fans in the building. I think that means a lot. I think that is going to mean a lot in terms of building hype for the game and for this team, for a Missouri team that's kind of reeling. And they've got a chance in this game, no doubt about it. I don't think, while Miami is definitely a good team, they've shown some quality in the ACC. They have some, good wins to their name. I meant to check how close they pushed Duke in their 2 games this season. And I'll have to circle back on that. But yeah, they're a quality team, but I don't think anyone is saying, oh my gosh, like absolutely no chance. You know what's funny? Did they not play Duke? It doesn't look like they've played Duke on their schedule. That is really interesting. I didn't even know that was possible. Yeah, no, they have not. They did not play Duke in the regular season. I didn't even know that you could do that. I thought you at least had to play everybody one time. There you go. They never played Duke. So they're a good team. Of course, they have some quality, very balanced, but this is a game Missouri can win. And, we'll have to see. They certainly have to rally. They cannot look like the team that has shown itself at times against Kentucky and, of course, Oklahoma a couple weeks ago. But this team should have a chance. So we'll talk more about it. But, yeah, just wanted to get kind of a reactionary little video up for Sunday and Monday and just give some thoughts, give an overview. Missouri, a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. They're going to play in St. Louis. Drop a comment on your thoughts about Missouri's chances against Miami in the bracket. Let me know if you're going. I mean, shoot, it's drivable. Be there. Throw it back to last year with Oklahoma City. So there you have it. Great draw for Missouri. I don't think, just in the sense of the location alone, I'm not trying to put any disrespect for Miami, but it's the fact that Missouri got a 10 seed and the fact that they are in their own backyard. Also really funny, my last thing, that St. Louis has to go to Buffalo and Missouri gets to come to SLU. How funny. At one point we were projecting that as a possible 7-10 game. I remember 8-9. That would have been something, but there you go. For any SLU fans out there, actually, so this is just fun for me because I can look at it gives me an excuse to look at the bracket. SLU, I think, is playing Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, sorry. They're playing Georgia in the Midwest, so they're over here. Good Lord, it zooms so much. They're playing over here, so they play Michigan. If they win, that'll be... That 8-9 line's tough. Missouri knows a thing or two about that. Konzo Martin took Missouri to the 8, or got Missouri on the 8-9 line, lost to Oklahoma. So there's St. Louis's path for any SLU fans out there. That'll do it for me. I've yapped too much. You've listened to 22 minutes of one man talking. I really respect if you actually made it to the end. But 10 seed for Mizzou in St. Louis. Big stuff, big time stuff. 10:10 p.m. Eastern tip, 9:10 Central. They are the last game of the round of 64. How fun. We'll see if Missouri can bookend it with a win. We'll be back probably earlier than Friday, but maybe Friday morning with the preview of the game and with the 4 of us like normal, or the 3 of us like normal. So until then, enjoy, drop your bracket reactions. Let me know who you've got winning the whole tournament. If it's Missouri, more power to you. If it's not, let me know who it is. And we'll be back with Kenny and Peyton and myself real soon.